effectively, the Bank of England has defaulted. Now, if it came out publicly that they've defaulted, the whole global financial system would collapse. Hence this program. We've got to deliver gold to the Bank of England. Because if they fail to deliver, it's a default.
You're watching Capital. My name is Danny. Today's guest is the one and only fan favorite Simon Hunt. Simon, thank you so much for coming back on the show, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. Pleasure as always.
Pleasure is here as well. Let's go ahead and dive right in, Simon. I'm going to let you kick things off whichever way you want to talk, whichever topic you want to talk about. For you right now, considering everything that's going on around the world, what is most topical for you?
I think what I'm grappling with is the interface of America and the global economy with a very uncertain geopolitical outlook. What emerges out of the White House fiasco, as I call it, which I suspect was deliberately set up by President Trump and Vance to make Zelensky look stupid, and thus to show to the American public what the hell has America been doing in the last 4 years financing this guy. But the repercussions are mind-blowing, in my view. You saw the scene where he's kicked out of the White House.
Right.
Almost literally. He arrives in London and is hugged by Starmer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that told you everything. And everything means is, in our view, is that Trump has said, no longer is America going to support any war in Ukraine. It's a complete nonsense. We are slowly mending fences with Russia. It will take time. But at least for the first time in 4 years, we're talking to each other. And it's up to you, Europe. If you want to continue the war, you continue the war, but we won't be with you. So Europe is in a complete, how can I describe it? They are in a total collapse in knowing what to do. You come out, Starmer and others come out with silly statements. Oh, we're going to support Ukraine. We're going to put boots on the ground, and we're going to fly airplanes in Ukraine. And come on, what have they got? They talk about 30 to 40. Tell me how many Russians are actually physically in Ukraine. Probably 500,000. And they're battle hardened. I think that Europe is trying to suck America in, but America won't. Trump has said so. It's your affair now. So this has a direct impact on economic activity in Europe. There are signs that businesses started to improve. We look at money supply M1 and M3, up 2.7 and 3.6 respectively, year over year. The mood in Germany is better than it was. And if you look at what some of the basic industries, inventories have been run down, order books are full out to June, shipping times have doubled. Well, all that sounds good, but you've now got Europe having to cope with tariffs. You are not going to see the end of the war in Ukraine this year. In Germany, you've got Friedrich Merz. Who is he going to bring in to his camp in order to get any serious funding through? The AfD, 20% of the votes. Metz does not want to have anything to do with them. So there's I question how long the legs of recovery will last. I suspect that by mid-year, Europe is going downhill again.
Yeah, so you mentioned the... Go ahead.
Go on.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned the M1 money supply. So I have the chart pulled up here, and it does appear, you are seeing a recovery in M1 in the money supply.
Yeah.
So it's starting to pick back up. What's the cause of this?
What's the cause of it? ECB. Very simple.
So wasn't the EU a byproduct of the CIA in the early beginnings? Have they lost control of their vassal state in America, or their vassal entity?
That's a very good question. People I talk to say Europe has its own deep state.
Mm-hmm.
And that deep state is running Brussels. They do what they're told. and as do most of the European leaders.
What's most in danger in Europe now? Go ahead.
Having said that, there is obviously a direct link between the deep state in America and the deep state in Europe. That's obvious.
What's most at risk of triggering a collapse in Europe?
In what way? What do you mean by most at risk? Which country or which sector?
Like, whether it be a country, whether it be a sector, whether it be the European bond market, whether things like that.
I would suggest all that you've just mentioned. I think it's a false rally. And the biggest sector is going to be the auto sector. The amusing thing, as a German told me yesterday, is that the biggest American car export is the BMW SUVs that are made in America. So they come into Germany, they will be hit with Europe's tariffs.
Wow. So there's a recent report out of Bild, B-I-L-D, newspaper, where they said that there's rumors of a restarting of Nord Stream 2 for, to help Germany. Have you heard about this?
No, but it wouldn't surprise me. Will that fit with what the incoming German chancellor wants? He is talking about Germany is going to be independent from America. Well, maybe, yes, he will want Nord Stream 2 restarted and then stop the imports of LNG from America.
So
then you have to ask, what will America do to stop that from happening? They stopped Nord Stream 1.
what about Norway? Is Norway incentivized to stop it, considering their vast oil industry?
Norway certainly siding with the EU position on Russia, that's for sure. So I can't answer your question. I don't know.
So you mentioned this European collapse, whether it be in the markets or elsewhere. How would that reverberate across the world? Would that kind of act as could that act as a contagion to the U.S. markets, or would it actually be kind of like would the U.S. market be a beneficiary of the European markets collapsing? Because now you have all that capital coming into the U.S.
Well, first of all, I think we need to see what's happening in America, because what's happening in America is going to impact Europe. Every way you look at it, I mean, look at the Atlanta Fed's GDP now.
Mm-hmm.
In
negative.
1 month, it's gone from plus 3.8% to minus 2.8% in 1 month, as of the 3rd of March.
Yeah. What's going on there?
Well, I think we've been saying for a long time that in the first 6 to 9 months of this year, the American economy is fundamentally going to weaken, if not be in recession. You look at the employment data, reports that I'm seeing, is that there is a real risk that not only is employment weakening now, but guys are saying that by spring, you're going to be seeing layoffs in the 400,000 a month.
Mm.
Then if you look at retail sales and adjust retail sales for a realistic US CPI number, not the 3%, even the 3% gave you zero growth last year, but even call it 4 or 5, whereas Larry Summers, when he rejigged the numbers back to 1983, he came up with a CPI figure for last year of 8%. My chum, John Williams of Shadow Government Stats, who takes all the numbers back to pre-Arthur Burns in the 1970s, came up with a figure of 10.8%. So, yeah, there's a big chunk of GDP straight away. Now you've got Doge cutting government employment and migrants being forced to leave the country. They were all spending money. Government money, yes, but spending money. So what happens to GDP? And given all the uncertainties with tariffs and the global outlook, I'm sure that business people are saying, woof, I think we better stand back and just see how the waters calm down.
In the world of precious metals, trust is everything. It's key. And over the course of the last few weeks, I've gotten a chance to meet the good folks over at Pimbex, and I've got to say, they have got great character, and they're someone that I can put my trust into. Now, Pimbex offers ultra-competitive prices, top-tier service, and fast and secure shipping. All the things that are important for gold and silver stackers. Thinking about a gold and silver IRA conversion, they've got you covered there too. And don't just take my word for it. Check out their top-tier third-party reviews and see why so many stackers have trusted Pimbex. And so for all of your gold and silver needs, head on over to Pimbex. That's PIMBEX.com. Link is in the description as well as on the screen here. Yeah, and the tariffs have officially started as of today. The 25%,
Yep.
25% tariffs for Mexico and Canada are underway. China's tariffs have doubled from 10% to 20%,
Yep. Yep.
and all parties have vowed to retaliate. So what could
Yeah.
this spiral into?
The big question is Trump, by pursuing tariffs forcibly, does he have something bigger in mind? I'm not sure. But what it is doing is it is going to cause chaos in the whole global supply chain system. That's disruptive.
Does it? Go ahead.
I mean, we've got these early shoots of recovery in January and February, but I think they're going to wither before they grow, so that we're more likely to have recession than we are going to have growth. I think that providing China's economy, let me rephrase that, providing Trump does not go heavy at China, then China and Asia can grow. I think China will probably grow at 5% this year. I think the focus is stabilization. That we've seen the worst of the property collapse, which was a deliberate policy. Now the collapse is being contained, and we're seeing shoots of recovery there. We're seeing households spending a little bit more. And it's only going to take households to increase their spending and drop their savings from, say, 37%, which is the average at the moment, to 35%, and you unleash huge new buying of everything. I think that's probably not on the cards this year, because I'm sure the government focus is stabilization. We will grow. Second half of this year, we'll start seeing profit margins improving, not before. So I think China's will have a very good year next year, subject to what Washington does to try to contain them. But don't forget that there's a lot that China can retaliate with. I mean, somebody told me that both in Europe and in America, that the do-it-yourself stores, 90% of the stuff in those stores come from China.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from, all the rare earths, critical minerals, EVs, the whole lot.
Yeah. What do you
make? To answer your question, I mean, it's pretty clear that what Trump is trying to do by cozying up to Russia is to break the Russia-China alliance. He will try, but I don't think he will succeed. That's what I get out of people in Moscow.
Yeah, interesting, because here's the thing between the economy between Russia and the U.S. and Russia and China. whatever you want to make out of their autocracies in Russia and China, but these are longstanding autocracies. Whereas in the United States, it's a 4-year relationship. So
Yeah,
Trump is here
yeah,
now. He's friendly to Russia now, but who's to guarantee the next guy will be?
yeah.
So you can't
I
make
mean,
any
it's
long-term deals with the United States, especially as we've seen. Look, I mean, I'm no fan of Zelensky, but it's kind of like that old adage. You don't. The people who talk about other people to you probably talk about you behind your back too. So
probably.
yeah,
I'm sure they do. I'm trying to find something. I can't find it. There's a very senior strategist who's chairman of one of the big institutes in Moscow, who wrote a couple of sentences which struck me. He said, "It's great that we're starting to talk with America. That's good for everybody. But we must be aware of not getting too close to America, because if we do, we will lose the trust of the third world who have been supporting us."
mhm. And so with China in the mix here, I mean, both the United States and China were invited to Russia's Victory Day parade. Is that of significance to you, or not really? Because granted, the U.S. did fight in World War II on the same side of Russia and China. Or could there possibly be a making up between the three countries, or more so the U.S. and Russia and China at that point?
I'm not sure that anybody from America is going of any seniority.
Well, Putin invited Trump,
Yeah, I
and I'm
know
not
he was
sure.
invited. He was invited. I'm not sure he's accepted.
Mhm.
I mean, she is going, that's for sure.
Right. Now, what's going on with this gold buying that we've been seeing, or this gold emptying out of the LBMA that we've been seeing lately? I want you to talk about that. Let's talk about what's going
Well,
on over there. Is there a huge
I
sucking
think
sound
it's
coming
very
out of Europe
important.
and into the United States?
I think we should consider a what if scenario, which is that America still has its 8,133 tons of gold. That gold may not all be in Fort Knox, but spread through military bases in America. And it's quite possible that America is adding to that US Treasury Reserve by buying more, with a plan to double its holding to 16,000 tons. Then now this is pure thinking out of the box and speculation, but Trump's great statements about cryptocurrencies in a proposed new sovereign wealth fund may actually be a camouflage from what he's really after, which is to bring the gold standard back.
Hmm. How so?
Now, many years ago, I mean, maybe 10, 15 years ago, a friend of mine who knew his way around the traps in Washington is now unfortunately passed away, put forward a suggestion that in due course, America will have $2. $1 for domestic use only, backed by gold, and the international dollar will be allowed to find its own level. Thus, a way how America can inflate its foreign debt away.
Mm.
I mean, on our long term, my technical associates, long term dollar index, like probably falling to its low in around 2030, half of today's value. So this is thinking out of the box. It's not a forecast, but it's something we should be considering, because the consensus is that America doesn't have that gold. But there are a few people who say they do.
Yeah, but who's to say whether America does or doesn't have it? Can't he just make up a number? Because we've never looked into the vaults in years, in decades even.
Yeah, but the time will come when actually they will open the vaults at Fort Knox and show everybody, look, here it is, all 16,000 tons.
And do we revalue gold? Does the U.S. stand to revalue gold to relieve itself of its debt burden?
Well, the external dollar will, yes.
Well, so wait, the domestic dollar is the one that would be backed by gold, correct? And then the
correct.
external one is the one that's freely exchanged.
Just think, yeah. But it's interesting when you look at what Russia really has, which is more than 12,000 tons, and what China really has, which is citizens and institutions have about 25,000, and through the government ministries, another 25,000. I mean, I think there is an interesting scenario in which Chinese exporters park somewhere between $1 and $1.5 trillion US dollars in Hong Kong banks. What happens if Beijing says to them, bring that back into China? If they did that, you break the Hong Kong dollar pegged to the US dollar on the upside.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe soon after, China announces our dollar is backed by the gold that our citizens own. But what had happened before is virtually a peg between the Chinese currency and the Hong Kong dollar. So then the Hong Kong dollar is de facto backed by gold. And that becomes China's international currency, the Hong Kong dollar. Now, again, this is thinking out of the box. But these are the sort of things that I think is going to happen over the next, where are we now, 5 odd years.
Yeah, well, they have set up this accumulate program in China where they've made it very easy for people to transfer their cash holdings into gold.
Yeah.
So it is acting as a mechanism to suck up as much gold into China as possible.
Yeah.
And why is the gold fleeing Europe? I mean, it's not just the LBMA. It's also coming out of Switzerland as well, and it's also coming to the United States. Is this a master plan on the part of Trump to suck up all the gold worldwide, or is this kind of like hedging like geopolitical risk in Europe?
I think it's a master plan, but whether it's a Trump master plan or not, I don't know. It could be a BIS master plan.
In what way?
Restructuring the global economy, the global financial system. That comes under their surveillance rather than the US Feds or Treasury.
Yeah. Because for the first time ever, I believe there's an arbitrage on the side of the COMEX as opposed to the LBMA. Usually you had this you had a higher premium on the COMEX versus the LBMA, so you had this geo arbitrage. Now it's reversed. It's the other way around. There's a higher premium on the LBMA than there is on the COMEX. So which once was a tailwind to get gold out of the US into Europe is now moving in the opposite direction.
That's because the BOE was short.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you've got the gold, why does it take 4 to 8 weeks to have it delivered? It's nuts. Right. It's a matter of days, if not hours. So what I suspect, in fact, what I think has been happening is that the BOEs had to go around the banks and the BIS to have gold delivered to them so that they can redeliver gold to the buyers. Hence 4 to 8 weeks of delivery.
Could we see a failure to deliver? Is that a real risk on the table?
I'm going to say that again.
Could we see a failure to deliver?
Yeah, I mean, effectively, the Bank of England has defaulted. Now, if it came out publicly that they've defaulted, the whole global financial system would collapse. Hence this program. We've got to deliver gold to the Bank of England. Because if they fail to deliver, it's a default.
And is this why they need a war with Russia?
Sorry, say that again.
Is this why they need a war with Russia?
Yeah, I think one reason. Not just the UK, but all of Europe. It's the excuse to default on their debt.
How close is this Europe? I mean, we've been talking about the entirety of the show, but how close are we to seeing like a bank failure in Europe or like a market crash in the European markets?
Difficult to answer because the authorities will string it out for as long as possible. I can't answer it.
Yeah, but they also don't have the tools like the Fed does and the Treasury does, because we do have the world reserve currency. We can just print money into existence without any. Yes, we'll get inflation out of it, but a large chunk of that inflation will be financed by the rest of the world, whereas Europe doesn't have that luxury.
It has the BIS behind them.
So we'll see what happens.
I mean, all I'm saying, it could happen any day, but it can't. You can't put a time on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my timing is 2027, 2028, when the whole global system is going to collapse.
I see. For the remainder of the time, I want to quickly touch on some of the stuff that's going on in the Middle East. It appears that the Gaza ceasefire deal is falling apart at the scene. Israel wants continuation of the phase 1 part of the deal, whereas the Palestinians want to move on to phase 2. So effectively, Israel wants more hostages I don't know if there's an equal exchange there, but that's the idea. But the idea was written in the ceasefire agreement was that we would eventually move into a phase 2. So do you see this ceasefire deal falling apart, and what could this mean for the region? Are we about to see a restart of the war in Gaza, and potentially could it spill out to the rest of the Middle East, or not?
Well, I think in the last few weeks, the situation has become very murky. You have Israel now saying we are not going to leave what we've taken over in Syria and Lebanon. The funeral of Nasrallah, friends who were there saying it was unbelievable, attended by 1 to 1.4 million people. Hezbollah is now very much part of Lebanese and Syrian society. And the people in the villages within 25 kilometers of the Israeli border are going back to their villages despite the villages being bombed. Then you've got there were back channel discussions going on between Iran and America. But given Trump's belligerent comments about Iran, they've stopped. So there were, a month ago, there were hopes that there would be a peaceful settlement. I think those have gone. Question I keep asking is how much of all of what Israel is doing did Trump support? My bottom line is that there is an increasing risk that, as you rightly said, the risk of renewed flare-up in Gaza. The West Bank is a complete mess, tanks going in. There are reports that both Jordan and Egypt are preparing to wage war
against Israel.
Yeah.
But can they wage war given that they're so dependent on U.S. aid and they have all these military bases in their countries?
Yeah, I know. Despite that, I mean, I think what's going on, and this is my guesswork, what's going on behind the scenes is that the Gulf countries are saying to themselves, we have had enough of the colonial powers messing up our region, and it's time we stood up against them. Now, this happens in a very step-by-step and measured way. And maybe it's Egypt that will lead that way, despite the fact that the Egyptian government is held together with American money. Maybe Saudis and the UAEs, etc., saying, we replace it. I don't know. There's something going on there which doesn't smell good.
Do those countries also risk falling into civil war as well if they continue to do nothing?
That's always been a risk because of the big Palestinian community. I mean, I know that from friends here connected to the security services that they've been on high alert for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen this recent speech? I don't have it ready, unfortunately, by President Pezeshkian of Iran. Basically, in a way, kind of throwing Khamenei under the bus, saying that we need to talk to the U.S., but the supreme leader does not want to talk to the U.S., and we need to be able to lift these sanctions and so forth. Have you seen this? Because there does appear to be a rift going on in Iran.
No, but the supreme leader is the person who determines foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
The president's authority is solely domestic government. So, I mean, for some time, we know that the president has been wanting to talk to America. He has a large support of the elite who want to do normal business. But the authority lies with the supreme leader.
Yeah. I think the Middle East is one to keep your eye on. It's not been getting much news lately, but some of the things that have been going on with this ceasefire deal breaking out, it could easily spiral. And
Well,
we're all preoccupied in Ukraine now, but I think that might blow up any moment should it fall through, should the ceasefire deal fall through.
Well, there's no ceasefire deal.
Yeah, they haven't reached it.
Russia's always said we will have no ceasefire deal.
No, I'm referring to the Gaza one.
Oh, Gaza. My apologies. Yeah. No, I agree. I think we've, having had a few weeks of things are getting better, it's now getting worse.
All right. Well, that's a positive note to leave things off on here, Simon. Anything else you want to talk about before we close things out?
I think we've done enough, I think.
Yeah, enough damage. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. Where can people find you if they want to hear and see more?
Simon-hunt.com.
Okay, we'll have that link down below, so be sure to check it out, guys. If you guys got value out of this content, be sure to give us a like. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode like this. Comment, go Simon, go in the comment section if you agreed with Simon's analysis. If you disagreed with anything, do let me know. I do read the comments. And then finally, check us out on Substack. If you want to support the channel and get early access to all of my videos, as well as ad-free versions, we don't have to suffer through these annoying YouTube ads, as well as uncensored versions for the videos that warrant it. So with all that said, thank you guys for watching. Simon, thank you for coming on, and I will catch you in the next episode. See you guys.
Cheers.